Hi guys, welcome back to Movie Recap. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the films from 2019, The Aeronauts. Without any further, let's get started. High in the sky, a man and a woman fight against violent winds inside a balloon. When throwing away all the weight fails, the man sacrifices himself by jumping off to save the woman he loves. This haunting memory returns to Amelia Wren, a skilled aeronaut who feels uneasy as she prepares for her first balloon flight in over 2 years. Her sister Antonia believes Amelia shouldn't fly if she isn't ready, but Amelia stubbornly insists she only needs a moment. It is 1862, and much of London has gathered to watch the balloon launch. James Glacier, the scientist set to take part in the expedition, isn't particularly concerned about the dark clouds overhead, unlike his friend and fellow scientist John True. James maintains that his calculations are correct and that everything will turn out fine. His confidence is reinforced by the wealthy investor funding the expedition, who is determined to see it proceed. Despite John's worries, the decision is made. The balloon will launch today. Amelia arrives late, but turns it into a spectacle, fully aware that ticket sales are what keep their flights funded. Dressed in a vibrant, circus-like outfit, she rides atop her carriage before leaping onto the balloon platform, joking with the crowd and teasing the visibly awkward James into playing along. She even brings a dog meant to fly with them, brushing off James's objections. After delivering a rousing speech about adventure and promising to surpass the French altitude record of 23,000 feet, Amelia releases the balloon before James can finish his notes and measurements. Moments after liftoff, she climbs onto the hoop and drops the dog, revealing it has been carrying a parachute the entire time, earning cheers as it lands safely below. As they drift above London and admire the breathtaking view, James peers through his binoculars at the British Society building, remembering how everything began. 2 years earlier, he and John had climbed onto a rooftop to watch another balloon successfully take flight. Inspired, James later sought funding from the British Society for his own expedition, only to be rejected and mocked for believing weather could be predicted, as if he were a fortune teller. The ridicule even reached his parents, deeply hurting them both. Back in the present, Amelia changes into warmer clothing while James releases his first carrier pigeon with recorded data. As the balloon climbs higher, they enter thick clouds, and Amelia, like John earlier, grows anxious about an approaching storm. James insists his predictions show no danger, but the weather quickly proves him wrong. Lightning flashes around them as violent winds shake the balloon. James is thrown to the floor of the basket, hitting his head and drawing blood. Despite the danger, Amelia refuses to land, confident she knows how to escape the storm by rising above it. Suddenly, a powerful gust hurls them from the basket. Both manage to grab the hoop, but another blast knocks James back inside while Amelia is left dangling from a rope. With the wind fighting against them and James lacking strength, he secures himself to the basket before reaching out and finally pulling Amelia back to safety. Once inside, Amelia immediately begins tossing sandbags overboard, allowing the balloon to rise above the clouds. At that altitude, everything becomes eerily silent, bathed in gentle sunlight. As they adjust the ropes, they witness a breathtaking aurora, something James had only ever seen in books. Overcome with excitement, they scream into the vast emptiness. Suddenly, faint city sounds echo upward, carried by the humid air. Thrilled by this discovery, James eagerly takes notes. Amelia, however, is struck by another painful memory, her final flight with her husband, Pierre Wren, during which he died. After his death, Amelia withdrew completely, drinking heavily and neglecting herself for 2 years. Weeks earlier, Antonia had finally pulled Amelia out of isolation, dragging her to a family gathering. Amelia was clearly uncomfortable, especially as most men were too intimidated to approach her, except one. James struck up a conversation, eventually revealing his true motive. He needed her help to test his theory that weather could be predicted through high-altitude exploration. Amelia quickly realized James had sneaked into the party uninvited, and while she usually didn't care about social standing, his dishonesty bothered her. Still, James delivered a heartfelt speech about how his work could benefit humanity, and Amelia ultimately agreed to join him. When Antonia learned of Amelia's decision, she confronted her, accusing her of running away from her grief. She insisted that the happiness Amelia found in the sky had come from her husband, not the balloon. Back in the present, Amelia slowly recovers from her panic attack as she hears James ask about her husband. She refuses to discuss him. While tending to James's head injury, they are suddenly surrounded by a breathtaking sight, a swirling kaleidoscope of butterflies fluttering through the air. James is stunned, having never believed butterflies could fly at such heights, even though John, who had studied them, was convinced they could. The moment confirms John's theory. Moved by the beauty of it all, Amelia finally opens up, telling James how much Pierre loved the wonders of the world. With tears in her eyes, she thanks James for not forcing her to speak about him before she was ready. Once again, her thoughts drift back to how they ended up here. After hearing Antonia's concerns, Amelia had nearly called the expedition off. She stormed into the British Society building, ignoring the rule that women were forbidden inside, to tell James the flight was canceled and that she would never step into a balloon again. Later that evening, James visited his parents to tell his mother the news, but he spared his father, whose memory was already failing. Despite this, his father still remembered how to use the telescope James had given him and even recalled the upcoming journey. As a parting gift, he gave James a pair of binoculars to use once he reached the skies. Back in the balloon, frost begins forming along the fabric. James allows Amelia to help him record the readings, and this time the numbers are thrilling. Slowly, steadily, they climb higher, celebrating the moment they surpass the French altitude record. They have officially reached the highest point ever flown by humans. They shake hands, grateful to one another, and James releases another pigeon carrying their findings. Amelia urges him to put on warmer clothing, but James admits he brought none to reduce weight. Fearing he might freeze, Amelia wants to descend immediately. James refuses, delivering a passionate speech about the importance of their work and drawing her attention to the beauty of the star-filled sky above them. Amelia realizes that her love of flight wasn't only tied to Pierre. Flying itself still brings her happiness. She agrees to continue, but only if she gets to decide when it becomes too dangerous. James accepts, and she throws out another sandbag. Another memory surfaces. The night Amelia finally changed her mind. John had come to see her on his own, not at James's request. He showed her James's research notes, including delicate sketches of snowflakes, and admitted that James was sometimes wrong. That night, James had predicted snow when there was none. Yet John explained that James also uncovered extraordinary truths and believed it was Amelia's responsibility to help push science forward. After John left, Amelia visited Pierre's grave. When snow finally began to fall, proving James's prediction right, she made her decision. Back in the present, frost now coats the balloon and the people inside it. James releases another pigeon, but it drops instantly. The final pigeon is already dead. And with no way to communicate their position, James begins to panic. He starts throwing equipment overboard, but Amelia stops him, pointing out that his erratic behavior and nosebleed are clear signs of hypoxia. The lack of oxygen is affecting his mind. Amelia insists they descend, but James, consumed by obsession, claims he's willing to die for science, just as Pierre did. Enraged, Amelia slaps him and reveals the truth. Pierre's death wasn't heroic. She had pushed the balloon too far, causing the seams to tear. No matter how much weight they dropped, the balloon wouldn't descend. Pierre jumped to save her. Ashamed, James apologizes and finally agrees that it's time to go down. Amelia pulls the rope to release the gas valve, but nothing happens. The mechanism is frozen solid. She reminds James to stay awake and not give in to hypoxia before climbing up to open the valve manually. The climb is brutal, frostbite numbing her fingers, yet she forces herself onward. She slips and ends up hanging upside down from the rope. Thinking of Pierre and refusing to let his sacrifice be meaningless, Amelia gathers her strength and climbs again, this time securing a rope around her waist. By the time she reaches the top, James has lost consciousness. She tries forcing the valve open with her elbow, but it won't budge. Desperate, she stands and kicks it open, then removes her boot and wedges it in place to keep the valve open. Moments later, Amelia collapses from exhaustion. She regains consciousness minutes later as the balloon finally begins to descend, slipping from the edge as gravity pulls her downward once more. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Amelia's family and the members of the British Society grow increasingly anxious. The balloon has not returned, and the estimated time of arrival has long passed. Still, they try to remain hopeful. More often than not, news only arrives when something has gone terribly wrong, so the silence may be a good sign. All they can do is wait. Up in the balloon, Amelia realizes she is still hanging from the rope tied around her waist, a decision that ultimately saved her life. She swings back and forth until she's able to reach the basket and climb inside. Once there, she desperately tries to wake James. At first, he doesn't respond, and Amelia fears the worst. But after shaking him repeatedly, he finally stirs and answers her call. James takes their final readings before tending to Amelia's frostbitten hands. He pauses only when snow begins to fall, carefully catching a snowflake to preserve for later study. Once finished, they sit together and wait as the balloon continues its slow descent. Amelia then tells James she has finally found an answer to her sister's question about why she chose to fly again. She wants everything she has lost to mean something. James responds by sharing the discoveries he's made, but above all, he speaks of the beauty he has witnessed, beauty no illustration could ever capture, and how they have, in a way, brought the stars closer to Earth. Amelia agrees. Suddenly, she notices something strange. The snow isn't falling at all, it's hovering. That means the balloon is moving at the same speed as the snow. There's only one explanation. The balloon is collapsing. After removing the valve and her boot, they begin throwing everything they can overboard to reduce weight, including their jackets and James's instruments after he tears the notes from his notebook. Even that isn't enough, and for a brief moment, they believe they are out of options. Then James has an idea. They both climb onto the balloon's hoop, and he cuts the ropes, releasing the basket entirely. The balloon plunges downward at a terrifying speed. Amelia considers making the same sacrifice her husband once did, but James stops her just in time. He has another plan. Together, they cut the cords holding the balloon's structure, allowing the silk to pull upward and transform it into a parachute. The descent slows, though the landing is still brutal. The balloon crashes through trees, throwing James aside, then drags Amelia across the ground before finally coming to a stop. Amelia loses consciousness briefly. When she wakes, she rushes to find James, meeting him halfway as he searches for her as well. Supporting each other, they manage to stand and make their way home. It's later estimated that they reached an altitude of 37,000 feet, over 7 miles high. Their achievement makes headlines, and James's parents see the news with pride. His findings confirm the existence of layers in the atmosphere, paving the way for the first weather forecasts and earning him long overdue respect from his peers. After spending time with her sister and nieces, remembering that she must also live, Amelia joins James in building a new balloon. Together, they return to the skies to continue their research.
The sky.
Thanks for watching, and remember to turn on your notifications to watch more movie recaps like this one.